From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Good afternoon. I'm Gerald Wilson, Executive Assistant in the Library's Office of the Deputy Associate Librarian for Library Services. Sharon G. Flake, our guest author, is a writer whose specialty is young adult literature. Ms. Flake, author of 7 books, writes passionately about the challenges faced by today's urban adolescents. Her latest novel, Penned, is the story of 2 young people struggling to overcome emotional and physical disabilities. Ms. Flake's interests are young people may, in part, stem from the 8 years she spent as a counselor for teenagers in a Philadelphia youth shelter. Born and raised in Philadelphia, Ms. Flake earned a BA in English from the University of Pittsburgh in 1978, and then took a job in public relations there. She said, "They really believed me when I said that I could write a press release and do public relations. I spent 18 years at Pitt, some of the best years of my life, by the way." Ms. Flake has also written The Skin I'm In, 1998, Money Hungry, 2001, Begging for Change, 2003, Who Am I Without Him, in 2004, Bang, in 2005, and Broken Bike Boy and the Queen of 33rd Street in 2007. She was awarded the August Wilson Short Story Award in 1994 for The Luckiest Sister, and in 1999, Coretta Scott King John Steptoe Award for her first novel, The Skin I'm In. She received the Pennsylvania Council for the Arts Fellowship in 2001, and her book, Money Hungry, was designated a Coretta Scott Honor Book in 2002. Ms. Flake's Who Am I Without Him was a Missouri Gateway Readers Award nomination in 2006-2007. Ms. Flake's hobbies are gardening, line dancing, and reading, and she enjoys walking her dog. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Sharon G. Flake.
Hello, everyone. It's interesting what they find out about you. Thank you. One thing I just wanted to correct, when I worked in a group home, I was in Pittsburgh. I was 21, I was shy, and they believed me when they said when I told them I could wake teenagers up who were 16 and bigger than I was and make them do what they were supposed to do. I wanted to talk today about my novel, Penned, and I'm going to read some things. I'm going to talk about the novel and the writing process. And I'll answer any questions that you have about any of my novels. For those who haven't seen the jacket, there it is. Penned is really a novel about a 9th grade girl who wrestles. Her name is Autumn Knight. She is the only girl on the wrestling team, and she is like a state champion. She struggles with reading. She's 3 years behind in reading. Autumn is convinced that she could make a great wrestler, that she would make a great girlfriend, but that she will never get any better at reading. She is quirky. She is in your face. She is honest. She's a kid that'll walk up to you and ask you all kinds of questions, but she's also willing to open up her soul and reveal it as well. It's also about a boy named Adonis who is very smart, very self-disciplined, doesn't tolerate nonsense at all. And for all of you in the audience who think you are on his level, he would probably say you are the regulars, just people he thinks are kind of pretty lazy. Autumn likes smart guys, and Autumn likes Adonis, and she is after him a lot. It's interesting that I would write a book about a girl wrestler and end up wrestling with the book myself. As you heard from the announcer, most of my books took about 1.5 to 2 years to write. This book took 5 years to write. When it started off, it was about a 9-year-old girl who had some phobias. She wore plastic gloves, her hands were covered up, she didn't want to touch anything. I had about 200 to 250 pages written when I heard God say, no. And I thought, what you talking about, Willard? You know, no, stop, don't go any further. I'm not sure exactly why. When I went to bed that night, I said to myself, I hear what you say, but I'm not going to do that. You know, I got 250 pages written here. But when I woke up in the morning, I thought, okay, you say you have some faith, so go for it. I made the character older, and through this whole process, I had lost my editor of 9 years. She had edited most of my books, so even before I started writing this book, she was out the door. The publishing house was going through some changes. People were kind of coming and going because, like any organization, any teachers in the audience? Okay. Any librarians? Okay. Any people that work for the government? All right, so you know what I mean when you have an organization that is shifting. It's life, it happens. So I had a new editor, and I didn't think that she liked my work very much. That's kind of an odd situation to be in, not just this piece of writing, but I thought, she don't like my work. And having been in the business for like 6 years, 7 years, and gotten a lot of awards, it's kind of disconcerting to think someone doesn't like your work and they're working with you. So I rewrote the piece, I gave it to her. She's like, well, she rewrote it again, gave it to her, and she said, God, this is really good. Now, sometimes, and I never experienced it before, but it was kind of like maybe I was on drugs, because I got this idea that I should hey, rewrite it. And so I rewrote it, I doubled it in size, and went from being about 200 pages to being about 420 pages. I remember telling my editor, my agent, this is like the best book I've ever written. Well, it was the worst book I had ever written. It was a problem novel. In this novel, somewhere in my head, I decided I would solve all the problems of the universe. I was going to solve the race relations problem. I was going to deal with the girl. She still had reading struggles, right? She still had her phobia. She had a sister that was a little sexually on the edge, kind of acting out. I was going to deal with all these problems. What had happened is I had gotten terribly lost in the novel. I handed it to my editor, and she made some comments, and I can't remember at what point I realized that this was not a good idea. Maybe once I reread it, maybe she gave me feedback, but she too left the organization. So the interesting thing about it is that I realized when she was going out the door that she really thought I was a good writer, because she also wanted me to work with her at the other house. But I was still stuck with this novel I had created that wasn't very good. So I got another editor. And the organization was shifting, so I didn't even get a chance to get feedback from her, and she was gone. And so I'm still drowning in my novel. I've never really had writer's block. I've given young people advice on writer's block, because I would just say, just go ahead and, take a break and write for 15 minutes about anything you wanted. But I had writer's block. I had the jitters, I had fear. I was at the point I had never been in my whole career, which was I was afraid I would, A, not be able to finish the novel, and B, never maybe write a whole novel again. At this point, I wrote my novel, short stories. Who am I? You don't even know me. Short stories and poems about boys. And I wrote it for a very specific reason. I only wanted to deal with short text, because I was persuaded that I wouldn't be able to do a whole novel. I have a couple of editors out the door at this point, and then Andrea Pinckney Davis, who was a brilliant writer and a brilliant editor, and my editor for The Skin I'm In. My agent contacted her and said, she's with Scholastic, maybe we should try something different. Andrea was like, I'd love to work with Sharon. That's going to be a great book. When you have what you think in your hand is crap, and you have a happy, cheerful editor telling you how great you are, behind her back, you kind of call her a few names. There were times when my daughter, I remember one time she was coming down the steps, and I was crying, and I was throwing up 30 sheets of paper, because I was like, I can't do it, I can't do it. And that sticks in my mind, because it was one of those moments where I thought, I'm not gonna make it through this. But I did, and Andrea came up with two great ideas that really helped me produce the book. One was get rid of all the problems that these people had, and get down to the core of what I was trying to do, which was to talk about a struggling reader. Two was to give her a gift, right? And so I made her a wrestler, even though I didn't know a lot about wrestling. The other one was to tell it in alternating voices. I talked to you about Adonis. And Adonis is a very kind of wonderful guy, but again, Autumn loved Adonis, but Adonis didn't love Autumn, which meant he spent running from her the whole book when she was telling the story. But when it came to alternating voices, he had to speak to me, right? Because I had to tell the story. Before, he wasn't talking to me at all. And it really was a breakthrough. It really made a big, big difference. So I wanted to read you some of the chapters, and just to remind people, it's not just a book about a struggling reader, because she is a struggling reader, but it's also a book about gifted students who happen to be challenged. So you have one chapter told in dialect, one in standard English, one from her perspective, one from his perspective. This is Autumn. You ever like a boy your friends thought you shouldn't like? Maybe he's short, or his ears stick out, or he got a face full of pimples, but you like him anyhow, no matter what they say. That's how I feel about Adonis. My best friend Peaches say I barely know him. She right, but I've been watching him the way you watch the clouds sometimes and see stuff in him that nobody else notices. I wait for Adonis every morning. He rides to school on a van with 8 other kids. I watch the driver lower the lift. Down come a boy in a wheelchair that got a tray attached to it. His arms is frozen in place. His head wobbles like there ain't no bones in his neck. I try not to stare at the girl coming off next, but I do anyhow. She walking, but not so good. 2 canes and leg braces help her get around, but she always look like she gonna fall down. I'd be embarrassed to ride in that van. Adonis ain't. You can tell by the way he comes off pushing himself, sitting up straight and tall like he headed to a meeting with the principal or the head of the school board even. I wave. He don't pay me no mind. I go up to him saying, hello, I saw the van coming, I waited for you. Looking at the pink feather sticking out my hair, he yawns. I stare up at the sky. When he turned his wheels to try to get away from me, I follow, smiling. Punching the arms of his chair, he stops. Quit it, Autumn. I just want to ask you a question. Inside, I'm telling myself to think of something quick and make it good. Do we got practice Friday? Adonis is the team manager. I'm one of the wrestlers, the only girl. Shaking his head, talking like he grown, he said, I've texted everyone. The time has changed, that's it, the date is the same. His hands go on the wheels and he's moving again, leaving me. When his new black leather jacket starts falling off the back of his chair, I catch it, handing it to him. I think of all we got in common, our Snickers bar, candy brown skin, wrestling, and my friend Peaches, who he don't like. I'm standing right in front of him, smiling, blocking him. Autumn, Night, you agitate me. His chair is rolling my way, so I move before I get run over. He don't go inside the building, though. He stopped to talk to one of the kids from the van, laughing after a while. He is always nice to them, always tutoring or working with them to get better at something like chess or Scrabble. He's different with me, always mad, like I did something horrible to him. Liking him is a good thing. I tell that to my friend Peaches all the time. Autumn! Peaches runs up to me, hugging me. A 98 on my human geography test. She holding up her paper for me to see. I ask about Adonis, what he get? She cutting her eyes at him. What's he always get? 100 plus extra credit points. Under my breath, I whisper, one day he gonna be my boyfriend. I look at him. Seriously, he will. When Peaches smiles, you can see her pink gums and small teeth. They ain't showing now, 'cause she ain't smiling. She upset with me, asking why I'm worrying about some boy when I'm behind in school, reading especially. Besides, she say, Adonis ain't good enough for me. He don't treat you right, and he's handicapped. Look, no legs. She grabbing both my arms, turning me in the opposite direction. Plus, he's only nice to them. She points to Roberto Martinez sitting in a wheelchair with the wind mussing up his long black hair. And grown up, she's waving at Mr. Epperson, our math teacher. She's not exactly wrong. Teachers love Adonis. The principal shakes his hand most every time he sees him. Adonis will do anything for them and the kids on the van. He is always trying to get away from me. A couple of things you should know about Autumn. She has flunked algebra and is repeating it. And her best friend, Peaches, is a gifted student taking an AP class, Human Geography, but she has failed Algebra 1. Her parents, her mom especially, has very, very high expectations and puts a lot of pressure on her. And so, in a way, Peaches has kind of a block when it comes to math, and she has a plan on how she can be in a different math class. And she has a secret that she doesn't share with anybody. Autumn, I told you, has been left behind in math. So beyond the issue of the reading, right? When you have to have math class, you have word problems. So you have to be able to read, right? So she's struggling in that class too. And she has these remarkable parents. And what I do try to do is take people out of boxes. She has parents who just got their GED last year, and they are saying to her, if you do not get your reading together, no matter how well you do in wrestling, you're going to have to come out. And so what you find in the book is that they are struggling with her to help her read better while they read better. I think there's a lot of times when you have parents that are not that well educated, we have a tendency to think, well, they don't do anything at home. And as a writer, you can try to do some things about those myths. I talked about Adonis. He was my challenge guy. If there's any book that you read of mine, there's always a guy in the book. I have a really heavy male readership. So for parents who say, I can't get my sons to read, a lot of them email me, a lot of them read my work. And so Adonis, I'm going to just read you a resume sort of I came up with for Adonis before I read his piece. I'm going to read the chapter first. From the moment I was born, Ma told me I was brilliant, I was handsome, and I was strong. She named me after Adonis, a Greek god. Stephen was to be my name, but when the doctor delivered me, I hadn't any knees, calves, or feet. Birth defects still happen. A boy without legs needs a strong name to stand on. Ma said that right in the delivery room, and then she changed my name. When I was young, I would pretend that I ruled the world. All the presidents, they would report to me. You do not need legs to dream big. You need to be determined, convinced that it is within you to accomplish great things. I shave in the morning, so I get to look at myself a lot. My ears are a bit lopsided. That is my only imperfection. Muscled arms, wavy brown hair, eyes so big and black they glow, they all add up to me. Perfect. When I get to breakfast table, Ma says how handsome I am. She picked out my hunter green sweater. I chose the jeans. Looking good is a top priority of mine. I try never to give people a reason to doubt my integrity. I butter her wheat toast while she pours oatmeal into our bowls. Drinking from the orange juice carton, I remind her that I am going to the movies on Saturday with a girl. She smirks. Autumn, right? Since last week, I have been telling her about Raven. I met her at our last wrestling match. She introduced herself to me. I've never noticed her before then. We have honors biology together. Raven is short. I like tall, statuesque girls. Her hair is short as well. Long hair is prettier. But she is intelligent, a gifted and talented student, attractive too. Her name is Raven, Ma. She's French and African American, remember? Sitting in her chair close to mine, Mom passes me the sugar. When you dream about her, then I know you like her. It's unfair. I've talked in my dreams since I was very young. Mom gets to hear what I think. When I was in 4th grade, they bullied me. Students at my school called me Iron Legs, No Legs, Willie Boy, Stumps, Disability Don, and other things I care not to remember. I never told Ma. She listened in on my dreams. She called a meeting with the principal as well as the bullies and their parents. I began to watch wrestling on TV after that. Last summer, I learned to box a bit as well. If I hit you, it will hurt. I am disabled. I am not weak. Raven, does she wrestle? Mom and I watched WWE every Saturday night for years. She knows a few moves, so she is impressed with with Autumn. She has never met her, but a girl wrestler seems cool to Ma. Besides, she doesn't think I picked the best girls. She said Emily would get me into trouble. She did. Emily told her brother that I was a snitch. Before then, she cheated on me. Raven is a good girl, very quiet. I dislike girls who talk too much. I hate the loud, obnoxious ones, especially Patricia, i.e. Peaches. Ma sits our dishes in the sink. When you dream about a girl every night, not every night, I correct her. She has gotten under your skin. Mom read an old newspaper article about Autumn. She is determined to go to one of her matches. She just seems so sweet, Ma whispers. She splashes her uniform with water. I get a text from Raven. See, Ma, she's studying while she's eating breakfast. Autumn, on the other hand, is a bad student. Ma asks what sort of grades Autumn gets. I earned a C once in 3rd grade and cried. I've only gotten A's since. Autumn's parents would probably throw her a party if she came home with a C. I bet she'll have to repeat 9th grade, I say. Well, I do believe in doing well at school, Ma says, giving me a kiss on the forehead. I also believe that we all have gifts, things that separate us from the crowd. I've got tons of gifts. I name a few. Ma laughs. Humility, however, is not one of your gifts, she says. That's correct. I know who I am. I know what I am capable of accomplishing. I do not dull my light so other people will feel better about themselves. Dad is Adonis. I came up with this resume. He volunteers at the library. He tutors disabled students. He refuses, well, once in a while he might tutor other students. He has game day on Fridays for disabled students. He has a 4.5 average. He goes to, he's a wrestling manager, and some other things. Very practical, very disciplined. I create my characters organically. So when I start a novel, I don't know very much. I knew I want to write about a girl who was a struggling reader. That's all I know. And then I kind of get on the bicycle and ride. This book was so challenging that it also challenged my process in writing, so that I work full-time as a writer, I work from home, and I couldn't do that for probably the recreation of the book. I spent that time at a cafe that had big bright windows where lots of light could come in and people around me clattering dishes and stuff. I had never done that, but I could no longer work at home with this novel. I think I said that my neighbors would see me walking down the street sometimes with a composition book. I don't keep composition books. I do not keep notes like a lot of writers, because whenever I would do that, I would lose it. So the person that's been with me today, I had her call my cell phone. It was in my purse somewhere. If you live with me or around me, you know that I'm always losing my cell phone. That is just how my brain works. So keeping notes about characters and stuff don't do me much good, if indeed I cannot find them, right? But with this one, I had to write some things down in a composition book for young people. If you are struggling with writing, if you're struggling with your work for math or science, walking kind of writes the brain. So if you can walk through your house or walk through your neighborhood, take some notes, some things are shake loose. That was my journey. Part of my struggle, again, was Adonis. That Adonis was not talking to me. He was not giving up any information. My background is I see a lot of young people here. I didn't write in high school. I didn't write in middle school. I didn't have anybody tell me I could write. And when I say that, sometimes I think people feel like sorry for me, and they shouldn't. I went to college to be a doctor. You heard about me wanting to be a pediatrician. I sucked at math and science. And it's probably a good thing, because I think my destiny was I should be an author, I should be a writer. When I was in college, however, I was a really bad speller. I'm a little bit better, but I don't have the gift for spelling. So I get these A papers back from my English professors, and I would look at all the red marks they'd made, all the circles, all the things they had flagged that didn't work for my work. And I thought, well, I'm not a good writer. I can't spell very well. They're just being very nice. I got the opportunity to do a major internship at a major paper in the city, and I never came, even though they called me 3 times. So a lot of what I talk about is my own self-esteem journey, that sense that, well, I'm not good enough, or I'm not good at this, or I'm not this. Your students, your children write to me all the time, and they talk about that kind of thing. And I get to encourage them and help them on their journey because of that. To do research for the book, I don't wrestle. I don't know a lot about wrestling. I'm not exactly even sure why I chose wrestling. Some parts of being a novelist, you don't choose things, they almost choose you. And you don't know why you gravitate towards something. So I had to go to wrestling matches, watch YouTube videos on wrestling, and read a lot about wrestling to incorporate it into the book. My biggest thing, though, was being able to try to get it right also in terms of a struggling reader. A lot of young people write to me and they talk about, in honesty, their struggles with reading. They're not liking to read very much. And so I wanted to be able to tell a story where they could see themselves and feel themselves and other people could understand their journey. I'm going to read a little bit about Autumn again. When Miss Baker walked into class smiling like reading is fun, I pick up my pencil and draw two hearts. Instead of a test, we're going to read a play today, she's saying. I don't know what's worse, a test or reading a play. Both are bad. Open your books. She walks over to me, squeezing my shoulder. Autumn, read the part of Kayla. I tap my pencil on my book, wondering how many freckles she got. She winks. I know you can do this. I don't like to read. It's boring. I tell Miss Baker this all the time. She say not to give up. She gonna help me read better. That ain't gonna happen. Teachers tried before. I'm still way behind. My parents moved around a lot, so I went to a bunch of different schools, sometimes 2 in 1 year. You put your head down a lot after a while and don't worry about the new stuff they teaching, because you might not be there for the test know-how. I missed a lot of stuff, I guess. My goal is to be the best wrestler ever, not the best reader. I know it's too late for that. Miss Baker's picking at her hair, a gray curly fro, short as the hair on my legs. Then she cleared her throat. Autumn. I kicked a chair leg in front of me. All right, give me a minute. Opening the book slow, I read a little to myself to make sure I won't mess up. There's so many words on this page. I know, Miss Baker, if I do go good on 3 lines, she'll push me to read more. The clock on the wall ticks loud as a bomb ready to explode. I keep flipping pages, seeing words I've never seen before in my life. Then that Kayla sure got a lot to say. 5 lines on this page, 7 on the next. God, she never shuts up. How long is this all going to take? Miss Baker tells me to begin reading on page 1 and a few other students going to be Kayla along the way. I can't read with that clock making noise. You gotta watch. Why we need a clock too? Miss Baker start counting. That's all Jackson Teagard need to hear. He sits up, telling everyone to be quiet. This is gonna be good. I start stuttering right off. Maybe. It happens when I read out loud. I get so nervous and worried. The words I'm reading double, triple even. The laughing comes next. She can't talk right when she reads. Patrick O'Malley says, laughing so hard hiccups happen. I read just fine inside my head. Maybe it ain't fast like the teachers want. Maybe it's not good enough to sound out big words, but it's good enough for me. Don't use your fingers, my mother said at home. You too old for that. You don't know that word some kid in my 1 class says to me? My baby sister know that, and she was just born. Then I come to this class for slow readers, and Miss Baker say that reading out loud helps us enunciate better and lets her see how much we improve, but it just make me feel dumb. I drop the book on the floor, then pick it up. Miss Baker walks over, rubbing my back. Her brown hands feel as soft as baby lotion. Autumn, she whispers, you can do this, baby. No, I can't. Not right now, not today, not ever maybe. So I pick up my pencil and finish drawing hearts. Autumn, thank you. Autumn does some things. At one point, she thinks that Adonis is going to rescue her. And this is interesting for a girl that wrestles exceptionally well, right? Cooks like a professional, and is very, very confident in every area of her life except when it comes to reading. And when Adonis doesn't come to her rescue, she comes to her own rescue. One thing she does is she keeps a jar with words, and you get to see how much she likes words. And she says that she likes to hang out with smart people. Adonis, and peaches. Teachers and librarians play a big, big role in this book. I know teachers and librarians have been getting, a bum rap for a few years here. But for me, like a lot of students in middle and high school, hanging out in the library was my sanctuary. I was shy. I saw the same thing with my daughter who was shy. And in middle school, she'd come home and she'd tell me how she read this book at the library, and the librarian said this, and the librarian said that. And so there is a librarian here that, and again, it's the sanctuary not just for the struggling reader, but for the gifted students. So when you find Adonis in there, it's a sanctuary for him as well as for Autumn. Autumn also, I think, represents that kid that has a dual side. Again, when we think about struggling students, we only see them in a very, very narrow window, very narrow focus. And Autumn gets to show them kind of another side to them. She was, I think, easier to create, but still not easy to create. Not easy at all. I wanted to read another piece from, I wasn't sure if anybody had questions or not. Go ahead. Excuse me? If you have questions, you can step up. I wanted to also read and make some comparisons with the gifted students. Go ahead.
I am so glad that you decided to write something about special education.
Special needs kids?
Yes.
Okay.
We have had you at the Detroit Public Library, and we love you.
Thank you very much. I've been there several times.
I know. And I took a special needs class to you, and they wrote poetry, and you read their poetry to the other students, and it really made a difference in their life. I just come to say thank you.
Thank you very much. I've been blessed. I have a reputation for, before I got published, I never had heard the term struggling readers. And so I have a reputation that a lot of young people who do not like to read will like my work, and then you have gifted students who like it, and you have people that say we use you to get kids to the canon because if they don't like to read, right, then how are you going to get them to read the classics and that kind of thing? Go ahead.
I want to know where you got the idea from John and your book, The Skin I'm In.
One of the books that I'm most known for is The Skin I'm In, about a dark-skinned girl who gets picked on because people don't like the way she looks. That's my biggest seller book. It's been published in French. When I get emails from India, from China, from Thailand, it's usually from that novel right there. Again, I'm a pretty organic writer, and people kind of just show up. In The Skin I'm In, at one point, John does say, Malika, we sure want to keep her, but she's so black, we just can't see her. That line I almost didn't include because I didn't want anybody to say it in class and have someone feel really bad about who they were and themselves. And I decided to leave it in because I wanted people to know when you bully people, when you're not kind to people, it can be really hurtful. And it gives young people a good conversation for dealing with that kind of issue. So did you like that book?
It was one of my favorites.
Yay, very good. Did anybody else have a question? Go ahead.
First of all, I really, really like Who Am I Without Him? Just this idea that relationships come in all shapes, all sizes, all flavors, all
Right.
everything. Second, it feels like a lot of your female characters are struggling with that idea of how to define themselves when others outside of them are trying to put things on them.
Right.
Is that something I'm reading into it, or is that a theme that you play with, or?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I will say that I think, all characters are struggling with something, whether it's something inside of them or outside of them. For The Skin I'm In, it might look like she's only struggling with, she's struggling with her own self-esteem, right? And she's struggling with some people outside of her, some bullying, that kind of thing. For this particular character, mostly it's defining herself. I think she's my strongest character, my most self-assured character. You might not be able to tell that exactly just from what I've read, but if you read the book, and you see how confident she is in all areas of her life except for that one part. And that's kind of her own internal struggle. So,
Thank you.
anybody else? I liked what the one woman said about being able to talk about people in relationship with other kinds of people, because there's nothing more true about that than in Pens, where you have this girl who basically says to this guy, I think you're handsome. I don't care if you don't have legs, and she actually says that to him. I like you anyway, and one day I see myself dating you and going to the prom with you just the way you are, and going into marrying you and going up the aisle sitting on a chair with you. I try to create characters that people don't necessarily think about. I try to think about them in non-traditional ways. The truth is, in The Skin I'm In, the only girl in the book that has a boyfriend is the heavy girl. And I did that because when we think about people who are heavy, and we think about what the media does to them, they hardly have love interests. If they do, they're the butt of jokes. And as a writer, you can do something about that. So I can create a strong guy in a chair that this girl thinks is just fabulously and cute. And have a whole nother kind of dialogue and conversation about what does it mean to be disabled, what does it mean to be different, and which one of us are different, as a matter of fact. Go ahead.
Hi, you mentioned having about 250 pages of the 9-year-old Autumn. Have you salvaged any of that?
No. So the question was, I had those 250 pages. Did I salvage any of that? No, I really didn't. I don't really go back and look at it, or, I don't. It's just somewhere floating around. I took it in a whole nother kind of direction as a novel. So, anybody else? I wanted to, though, share with you, because we look at Adonis and we see him a little tough here, but I wanted to show you his sensitive side. It doesn't seem to bother Autumn that puddles aren't underneath my wheels. He's dreaming. She is still kissing me. Her lips are as warm as July at high noon. Firecrackers heat up my body. Her smile fills my sky. I sit up wondering about that dream. Lying back down, I can still hear her say it. I love you. I reach over my nightstand, reading her note again. How many times have I read it? Every day, 3 times a day sometimes. You plus me equal perfect. At night in my dreams, it is worse than ever. She won't quit saying it or showing up. Smashing pillows over my head, putting 2 more between my thighs, I close my eyes. I have been thinking that I might quit the library. Work isn't getting done. I like everything in order. I want to know what to expect every day. Autumn means that nothing is the way it's supposed to be. Closing my eyes, I remember her cupcakes. Mom texted me to say they were exceptional. How could a 17-year-old bake? Now a 7-layer coconut cake is sitting on our table. Mom paid Autumn to bake it. I had a slice before I fell asleep. It was the best I've ever tasted. I can make myself dream whatever I like, or stop my dreams like they're wheels at a high curve. This time, when I hear her laughing, I do not try to run. Watching her sit on my lap again, it occurs to me, I've never had a girl love me before. Even when they've liked me, something felt wrong. Cuddling Autumn, I remember I do not really have any friends, just people I do things for. Those girls, they wanted things too. Raven asked if I would tutor her right before the movie lights went down. Autumn is talking a mile a minute, so I kiss her. When I stand up, she hits the floor. Girls always want something, I think. I hold on to my dream, even though Ma is calling, trying to wake me up. And Autumn is back on my lap, asking again if I like more of her cupcake kisses. So it's also a book, it's multi-layered, and maybe that's why it was so difficult. So it's also a bit of a romance. It's also something that this girl who can't read has a lot of lessons to teach this brilliant guy, and this guy in his chair and his love of words in the library has a lot of lessons to teach Autumn. Autumn volunteers for the library only because he's there, and she's allergic to the library, so she's itching all the time. But she learns again when you read it that she is control of her destiny, and he learns that maybe he is not as in control of the world. When a force like Autumn Night comes into your life, somebody who is willing to expose all of who they are, it's very disconcerting, and it's very disconcerting for him who has this kind of stabilized universe. Go ahead. I know her. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and it's so good to see you. I just want to say thank you, definitely, as a ninth grade counselor who just watched a child devour one of your books on Friday. I'm just grateful that you continue to work with this age group and that you're allowing them to see themselves in various ways through your books. But I'm curious what keeps you working with this particular age group.
Age group.
Yes, and also what has come back to you that allows you to feel like you're really making a difference.
You know what? Two things. I keep writing for this age group, I think, because I was born to do it. So it's nice to know finally when I ran away from it earlier that this is where I'm supposed to be. And, you know, so much of me is in them. I still struggle with my stuff. You know, I still struggle with feeling small. I'm very honest with them. Young people were the people that kind of outed me in a sense. Because when I did the skin I'm in, I tell them things in schools and meetings that my parents didn't know, that my sisters didn't know, that my neighbors didn't know, about being scared, about feeling small, about being little. And the more I said it, and the more it freed me and opened me up, the more I became confident. And so I consider them to have been partners with me on this journey. And so I don't take it lightly that I get to write for them. I'm also for underdogs. You know, I'm not somebody that likes to see people picked on or judged or people looked at as less than. And so a lot of the kids who read my work who feel like not empowered because maybe they don't read like somebody else. And the teachers and the librarians who have come to me and say, what keeps me going? Teachers and librarians and students, teachers sometimes coming to me in tears. A lot of times you teachers come to me crying and they'll say, this kid, they didn't think they could read. I didn't think they could read and they didn't think they could read. And they read all of your novels. And I think, some young people here who had said to me, one girl said, I read your novel when I was in like middle school and I was going to be, are you here? She was going to be something else and she's now going to be a poet and a writer. And she's gone to graduate school for writing. So all of those people that show me that with a word, you can change somebody's destiny. And you all become linked together. And you can do big and important and powerful things, not because your book is on a shelf in a store. Because a lot of what takes place is between me and a student on the internet, or me and a teacher, or me and somebody in school, or me signing somebody's novel. When I was signing the novels, people were saying, you personalize everything. And I keep wanting people to know how valuable they are and how important they are. And if I can write something to help you in your journey, it's like a link. So the teacher said something, right? The librarian has said something, your mama said something, and I've said something. And sometimes it's not till they've heard it the 5th or 6th or 10th time do you actually believe it. When teachers told me I could write, I did not believe it because I didn't write the way I thought. You know, it wasn't perfect. The spelling wasn't the way it should be. But because they said I could write, and because they let me turn to my stuff with all this crazy spelling, and because they let me take all kinds of risks in college, I was shy, I had a big mouth, but the stuff I wrote on pages was probably revolutionary in a way, and they let me do it. And so my characters have a lot of strength, they have a lot of power. Even in their weakness, I think that young people are strong. And when kids read it, I think they get a sense of strength and that they can say and do whatever they need to say and do. My time is up. Does anybody else have a question? You guys are fabulous. This was my first time here. Thank you. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.